Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Netling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Netling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to grow your business and take it to the next level. I'm excited to have today Yogi Aaron as my guest. Let me tell you a little bit about Yogi Aaron. He is one of the most sought after teachers today. Yogi Aaron is a trailblazing a new path of the world of yoga, known for his unorthodox perspectives on stretching and flexibility and how both cause more harm than good. Yes, more harm than good. His teachings aim to help as many people as possible live a pain-free life so they can realize yoga's true intentions. He is the creator of the revolutionary approach to yoga, applied yoga anatomy plus muscle activations. That is trademarked, y'all. So it's AYAMA, applied yoga anatomy plus muscle activation. And the online platform, the Yogi Club, host of the yoga podcast, Stop Stretching, author of the autobiography of a naked yogi, and the forthcoming book, Stop Stretching, a new yogic approach to master your body plus live pain-free. And it's a co-owner of Blue Osa Yoga Retreat and Spa in Costa Rica. Sign me up. Where he leads the Yogi Club yoga teacher training immersions year-round for students from all across the globe. I chose the theme to be, how is stretching killing you? I cannot wait to hear this. Please do welcome Yogi Aaron.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for that.
Wait. I gotta stop stretching. Okay, go.
Yeah, stop stretching. My students and support team always kind of joke that, you know, we kind of think about like different things to do on social media and which is not my like lane. I'm not very good at that sort of stuff, but they're always like, you should get like a police uniform or something and put like, you know, the Stop Stretching Police or something.
That would be a good TikTok.
Excuse me, young lady, what are you doing putting your foot behind your head? Stop stretching.
Oh, we have a 5K on Saturday. You could just get
a lot of tickets.
Oh, goodness. Yes. Oh, that would be fun. All right. So before we get into the hard questions, tell everybody what part of the country or the world are you calling in from today?
So I'm originally from Canada. I lived in New York for 10 years. I also lived in the Haiti and the Bahamas. And then about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, I moved to Costa Rica. So right now I'm calling in from Costa Rica, which is where I call home now.
Tough life. Okay.
Well, somebody's got to do it.
I know. You and all the other expats that moved to there. Okay. So let's just get into this. What is the personal experience that you have had with chronic pain that's led you to this journey you're on?
Yeah, I started yoga when I was 18. I was a very active individual, dog sled, snowshoed, canoed, hiked, trail ran, volleyball, ice hockey,
Oh,
I'm a
wow.
typical Canadian guy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
And by the time I turned 18, I remember like after I graduated from high school, I was just noticing like how tight my body was. And I kind of noticed that a lot of older people, and specifically the kind of older people in my mind are my grandparents, and how little range of motion they had, how little mobility. They were kind of like stiff as boards, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, and then I would look around and I would see older people that were youthful, like, and the differentiation was those youthful, young, old people had a lot more mobility. So I decided to start doing yoga. And in my mind, when I talk about yoga right now, I'm talking about stretching. And so not being the kind of person that really was into stretching, I thought this would be a good way to get me disciplined to do it.
Mm.
All of a sudden, I started developing problems in my body. And one of those problems manifested as one day my lower back seized up, which was kind of a weird experience for me because I was so young and I thought, what, WTF, what is this happening to me?
Mhm.
And it would take me about 25 years to figure out that it was the stretching that was causing the problem. But here's the interesting thing. Well, I think it's interesting that I would go to other yoga teachers, and there's a couple things to unpack. But one of the things that I said was, I am a person with back problems. So all of a sudden, I started having these back problems, and I took on this identity, this belief system that
Yeah.
I was having back problems, and I had to really be careful,
Mhm.
And then the yoga teachers often would say, well, we have to open your hamstrings, we have to open your lower back, we have to, stretch it out more.
Mhm.
Well, that actually exacerbated the problem because then 25 years later, I ended up in an orthopedic
Oh,
surgeon's
yeah.
office
Oh.
who was telling me, like, you're going to need a spinal fusion probably in your back. This is not good. Your lower back is a mess.
Oh.
And so when that happened, and I kind of like took a beat and I realized things have to change. But I just want to say one thing, especially if, because I know that you've been told like you should stretch and et cetera, et cetera. But the amount of chronic pain that I had to deal with over the years, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, the whole lower back thing. There's other issues. And so I'm very, part of what motivates me, there's a few things that motivate me, but one of them is I know what my own chronic pain journey was like, and it just breaks my heart to see other people going through the pain. And so even some of the people I've interviewed that have interviewed me, in the past few months have literally disabled in their chairs because it's too painful for them to walk. And so my goal is to start hopefully giving some people the tools so that they don't have to go through that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, my husband, when we were just married, and this is 40 some years ago, but he had kind of been typical guy, do football and all those other things. And his back went out and he had that surgeon visit, and the surgeon he had was, well, our surgery is not where it is that I would have you, that I could give you a guarantee that you'll walk again or anything.
Yeah.
So he taught him stretches to do, to be able to get through the day. And so first 20 years of my marriage, I couldn't do anything with my husband until he stretched for half an hour or so. So that's why I said I'm just so intrigued about what you have to say, because it could have saved me all those times, all those 20 minutes every day. All right.
Well, I think it's important though, like stretching does make you feel better, even for people that say, oh, it hurts. Afterwards, there is a euphoria. So that's number one. There is a euphoria. Number two, biomechanically, stretching does have I think some people might disagree with this statement, but I think it does have a somewhat positive effect on the central nervous system. Sorry, let me rephrase that. On the parasympathetic nervous system, which is part of the central nervous system, to get people into that rest and digest state. So in so much of I'm kind of projecting a little bit, so I don't know all the facts, but with your husband, I'm sure he was in pain, and that creates stress. And so stretching does have an effect where, your stress goes down. That's going to have a positive impact.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that in the long term, it's like putting a Band-Aid on the problem. It's never addressing like the real problem. And so I don't know what situation your husband's in today, but
he's still stretching.
Good. Well, at least he's mobile,
Yes.
Sometimes my teachers just say, do whatever works for you.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, goodness. Okay, so how did you come up with this trademark, applied yoga anatomy plus muscle activation approach?
AKA AYAMA.
AYAMA. Oh, I
Yeah.
like that. AYAMA. I'm going to get a t-shirt with that. AYAMA. Okay.
AYAMA. The interesting thing was so when I came up with applied yoga anatomy and muscle activation, I'll go back in a moment, but I didn't really think of the acronym until afterwards. The acronym sort of came afterwards. And then somebody on my team said, it's AYAMA. And I went, AYAMA? Oh yeah, you're right. And then I kind of looked at it. And it's the Sanskrit translation of AYAMA means a couple of things. On the surface, it means freedom. So it kind of denotes this idea of freedom, but the real definition would be more like something like unbridled power, like unleashed power, unrestrained power.
Well, you fell into that. That's awesome.
Yes. But what happened is after I ended up in the surgeon's office, I said there has to be another answer. And so at the same time, I was looking to expand my own base of knowledge. And so that kind of took me into this whole subject of muscle activation technique, which was created by Greg Roscoff. It's a school in Denver or just outside of Denver. And their lane is very specific. They're working with people one-on-one and how to start putting people's bodies back together. But there was a few things that I learned from it. And one of them was like how stretching specifically is shutting down muscles. So the problem with stretching inherently is that when you stretch a muscle, it's like you have a telephone line between your brain and your muscles. Okay. So that's kind of one way to describe it, is you have this telephone line, and that of course is the nervous system. And when you stretch, it's like taking a pair of garden shears and cutting that line. And so the brain no longer knows where those muscles are because you've stretched so much. And so when you come out, another way of saying this is that when you come out of stretching, you come out weaker than when you went in. And that's not how you want to go through life. I was actually watching a guy actually I kind of respect. He's a doctor, and he's like a physical therapist, if you will. He has quite a YouTube and Instagram following, but he was like, so, for those of you dealing with hip pain, you have to open your hips. And I'm like, you're kind of the guy that's telling people not to stretch. He's actually on the same bandwagon as me, but he's still using these kind of terms like opening your hips. And if you think about that biomechanically for a moment, it means like, what it really means is like you want to dislocate your hips. And that's not how you want to walk through life.
Yeah.
So I don't, there's a lot of these kind of things, but when you do these stretches, you end up weaker than you went into it. And so that's one of the takeaways I took away from my muscle activation technique training. The other thing I took away was really this kind of like hands-on approach to anatomy, that I really started to understand the body intrinsically. And that's where the applied came up. I was like, how do I start to bring this into the yoga world? Because yoga teachers are devastatingly ignorant when it comes to the body, comes to anatomy. And so it's like, how can we bring anatomy into this, make it more experiential, make it more applicable, and make it more science-based as well? There's a lot of pseudoscience floating around out there. So that's where the word applied yoga anatomy came from, and then bringing in muscle activation into the practices.
And so this eliminates the pain or covers it?
Well, so that's a good question, because when we stretch, as I just said, muscles become debilitated. And so what does that really mean, like biomechanically? So we have to understand muscles have two jobs, basically. They have other jobs, but they have the primary two jobs is to move bones and to hold and stabilize joints. So in the case of your husband, you know, he had these problems in his lower back because the joints of his lower back were not stabilizing. The muscles weren't working there. And there was probably some other compounding problems. So when the joints aren't being supported properly, stress always happens. The joint becomes stressed out. The result of stress is inflammation. And so sometimes you can have chronic inflammation, sometimes just a little bit. But as soon as we get the muscles working and the joints stabilize, guess what happened? The stress goes, inflammation disappears. And I've seen it happen as quickly as seconds.
Really?
Sometimes I've seen it take a little longer, but I have seen it. I've seen it on my table several times when I get people in with like severe shoulder pain or lower back pain, or their neck goes out. I've experienced it as someone who's received it, and I've experienced it as someone who's given it several times. I would say more than 80% of the time, pain goes away like instantaneously by using this. So all we're trying to do is get the muscles to start doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is to improve their ability to shorten properly and be connected. And that happens through being connected to the brain.
So I was just thinking, you know, I had my 65-year-old brain on for a second, and I thought, well, how does arthritis come into play here, though?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I would say anything such as arthritis. I have a student of mine who has fibromyalgia. Anybody that has an inflammatory, I don't know what the correct word is, disease or condition, I'm sorry, that those things are going to create more inflammation. Yes, right? So, and sometimes arthritis, depending on the kind of arthritis, is caused by instability in the joints. So that instability is actually creating more inflammation. So what I can say is, in most cases, it's going to have a huge positive impact because that inflammation is disrupting the communication system between the brain and the muscles. And so you want to always reinforce that brain to muscle connection. And again, if you get the muscles working properly, stress goes down, inflammation goes down, communication system improves, and then the stress tolerance of the individual or of that specific joint starts to go up. So very important. I wouldn't say that it would always get rid of it completely. It's not necessarily the cure for those things, but it definitely is going to make a dramatic difference.
So you probably don't have as many friends in the yogi world as you used to. So how are some of the yoga poses doing us more harm in the stretching, I guess?
Well, as I was talking about earlier, that when we stretch a muscle, the muscle disconnects from the brain to that muscle. And so what that means is the muscle loses its ability to contract properly, i.e. stabilize joints and move the body, and stabilize the body through different movements. Like the movement, by the way, can be as simple as picking up a dropped pair of keys or lifting up a grocery bag. I mean, how many people have hurt their back, using that term that sometimes people use, throwing their lower back out by picking up a bag of sugar?
Yeah.
Or sneezing.
Yeah.
And so this is a sign of a very weakened system. And so when we go and do some yoga postures, and I'll just pick on my favorite pose to pick on, which is child's pose, because it's the most common yoga pose. But that pose has a negative impact on like 4 different systems of muscles in your body. And I remember back when I was around the age of 29 or 30, and I went to this one yoga class, and I usually was at that point starting to really do my own yoga practice. I didn't really need to go to classes, but I like to go to class for the community, spirit. And I would always get there a little bit early, and guess what pose I would always do? Child's pose. And I remember a few times, not just once or twice, it actually happened to me quite a few times, that I would start the class. The teacher would say, okay, everybody stand up. And I would stand up, come out of child's pose and stand up. And then the teacher would say, inhale, bring the arms up, exhale, fold forward. And somewhere in between that folding forward or inhaling and coming up, my lower back would seize up.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, really, it was very devastating, because again, I'm like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I'm very alignment centered. Like my awareness of my alignment in my body is very acute. Even, back then it was very strong, and I had very strong intention in the way that I move, but yet my lower back seized up several times on me. And so I never understood that the problem was due to a weakened neuromuscular system, and that child's pose was one of the main culprits that was leading to it. Yeah. So that's why I'm very anti child's pose now. But you can actually test somebody. I actually just released a video on my YouTube channel just last weekend, and just demonstrating and showing to people, this is what happens. You can actually see it, what happens when the body becomes weaker from doing.
Lucky for the audience, we're going to be showing a screenshot of your contact information that has that YouTube site, so that they can rush to it to see you demonstrate that. Yes. We are running so close in time, so we're going to move into the rapid fire, and I just have 4 today. What do you see as the future of yoga?
I see that people are starting to get hungry for real truth, real understanding of themselves, and are starting to scratch below the surface of just like, going to yoga classes and leotards and leg warmers and putting your foot behind your head, that there's actually something more behind it, and people are starting to ask for it. So that's what I'm on the mission to give.
It allowed me to have my babies without any drugs.
Yahoo!
I know. So what do you think is the ultimate goal of yoga, and how does AYAMA support this aim?
I think that the ultimate goal of yoga, according to the Yoga Sutras, is that we all have a purpose in life, and here are the skills you need to develop to fulfill that purpose. Why AYAMA is so important is because when somebody is debilitated with pain, they all their attention is focused on how to get out of pain. So my goal is to help or empower people to free up that energy, so to speak, so that they can direct their mind towards fulfilling life's purpose.
Awesome. That's excellent. I think we've already kind of covered this one, but what are some top mistakes most people are making whenever they are doing their yoga today, besides the child pose?
Besides stretching, I think that one of the biggest mistakes people make, and which is why I'm endeavoring to create more conversation, is to bring more science into the conversation. There's a lot of pseudoscience out there, And I just gave an example earlier, this kind of term that's thrown around like opening your hips or opening the shoulder girdle. It doesn't make sense. It has no scientific merit, really. So I'm trying to just bring more education, more science, and try to get people, at least at the very least, kind of stop and go, does that make sense, really?
And what's your thoughts on the breathing aspect of yoga?
Oh, it's the most important thing.
Yes.
It's, you know, I actually have a saying that my students love quoting me. It's like, if you change your breath, you change your life.
Yeah.
If you want to change your future, change your breath. And there's just so much to unpack. And I know that we're running out of time, so I'm not going to say anything else. People have to contact me for more information.
That's right. And we'll have to just have another conversation where all we talk about is a breath, because
that's a huge one.
I'm serious. That's what got me through my labor. All right. So what do you wish you knew when you were 20 that you don't, that you know now?
Well, obviously that I wish I, knew not to stretch. And I knew, but more than that, I wish I understood why muscles are tight to begin with. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, still to this day, but I wish I knew that information then.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and share the screen. So those of you that are just listening in, if you would just go quickly and grab a paper and pencil. Those that are watching, you can look at the screen, take a screenshot. So here is your warning if you don't have that paper and pencil. Okay, so he is at https://yogi, YOGIAARON.com. That's yogiaaron.com. Again, yogiaaron.com. He is on Facebook, Yogi Aaron. Instagram, Yogi Aaron. YouTube, Yogi Aaron. He gets like 10. Way to go, because it makes it so much easier. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about this book again.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And when it's coming out, even though this is probably after the fact that, just if it's out already.
Yeah, it's out already. People can go to Amazon and search Stop Stretching. There's also, I think you're going to put this link in the show notes. And the book is basically a how-to guide. Very easy, very fun. It's a lot of fun. There's diagrams or pictures of my cats and dogs in there. They love doing yoga with me. And it's really just taking you through your body and teaching you a little bit about your body. It's not a master's degree, don't worry. It's, again, meant to be a lot of fun, and it's very experiential. And this book will change your life because it will give you the tools to be able to go in when you're having pain and figure out what to do about it and how to solve it.
And so I know that this wasn't in our notes, but you did mention about, or we did have in our bio about the retreat. Is it just for yoga instructors that your retreats are, or talk to us a little bit about what you've got there?
Yeah, at Blue Osa Yoga Retreat and Spa, it's open to anybody who wants to come. We have programs with groups. We have programs for individuals, and then I offer trainings and retreats as well. A lot of what I do is in a quote unquote training format because it's one of the best ways to teach people. I would say about 70% of people that come and do my trainings are not interested in becoming a teacher. They just do it for themselves to grow and to get the skills that they need to basically function better and more well in life. And so it's really open to anybody, but I also do a lot of retreats and other things that's very AYAMA focused, and also to really give people, again, the skill set to go out to manifest and live their life purpose.
All right. So if you want to know more about his retreats, you can go to Facebook and DM him asking him that, or go to his website. I'm sure there's probably further information there at yogiaaron.com. It has been such a pleasure, so much fun. I am happy to hear that I could stop stretching and just keep on breathing as I have been. I'm going to tell my husband that he needs to get your book. And
Yes.
as soon as he is recovered from his shoulder surgery, well, God, I know he's my bionic man here now. Oh, goodness. All right. It's been such a pleasure. So I want to just thank you for being a guest on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. If you all loved hearing about Yogi and what he does, be sure to subscribe because we got more of this coming your way. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.